I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here, typing out a story like this, but damn, I need someone to hear this. Maybe it's just therapy. Maybe I need to get it off my chest before I lose what's left of my mind. I proposed to my wife about 6 weeks ago. It was perfect, or so I thought. We'd been together for 5 years, building a life, or at least I thought we were. She seemed happy, excited even. I could see it in her eyes when she said yes, how her face lit up. I was floating on cloud nine. The day after I proposed, everything changed. I started noticing little things, her phone buzzing nonstop, her phone hidden in her purse even when she was in the shower, her acting defensive whenever I asked questions about her day. But I brushed it off. I told myself I was just overthinking it. I wanted to believe she was honest, that she loved me. I had no reason not to. Then came the night she worked late. She said she had to stay at the office until 9 p.m. to finish a project. I remember sitting on the couch, the TV on, but my stomach was knotted tight. Something smelled off. The way she hurried out the door, her phone in her hand, the quick kiss on my cheek, none of it sat right with me. I knew she was hiding something. That feeling gnawed at me, but I couldn't put my finger on it. 2 days later, I decided to snoop. I told myself I was just checking because I was worried, but honestly, I needed to know the truth. I snuck into her work email account, and what I found made my stomach drop. There, buried deep in her email threads, was a string of messages with her boss, Mark. Flirty messages, late-night plans, and a photo, her in a tight dress leaning into him at some dinner. The caption, "Had the best night ever." All those innocent work emails were a cover-up, a disguise for what was really happening behind my back. I couldn't breathe. My hands balled into fists. The room spun as my mind caught up with what I'd discovered. She'd been lying to me from the start. Right after I proposed, she was in bed with her boss, Mark. It wasn't just a fling, it looked like it had been going on for weeks, maybe longer. I sat there, staring at the screen, feeling like I'd been punched in the gut. My chest tightened and my palms turned clammy. How could she? How could she pretend to be the loyal wife I thought I knew? The betrayal hit me harder than I expected. I could feel a cold rage rising, but I held it back, knowing I needed to plan. This wasn't just a slap. It was a punch to the face of everything I believed in. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind kept flashing back to her face when she lied, the way her voice would go high and shaky when I pressed her. The evidence was right there in black and white. She thought she was so clever hiding it, but I saw everything now, the truth, plain as day. The woman I married, the person I trusted, was sleeping with her boss, and she'd been pretending for weeks that she was working late. I didn't know what to feel. The betrayal, the deception, it made my stomach churn. I kept asking myself, how could she do this? I'd never felt so stupid and angry all at once. I thought about confronting her right then and there, but I knew I needed a plan. I couldn't just explode and shout. I had to be cold, calculated. She thought she was untouchable, that I'd never find out, but I did. And now everything was about to change. I sat there watching her come home the next day, her face tired but innocent, and I knew she had no idea what I knew. That's when the real game started. I was done trusting her. I was done pretending everything was fine. I just needed to figure out how to make her pay for what she'd done, preferably without losing my mind in the process. I'd always been a straight shooter, but this was different. It was personal, and I was ready to fight back. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a freight train. My head was pounding, and my stomach was still churning from last night's revelation. I watched her sleep for a moment, the steady rise and fall of her chest, and I felt a new kind of cold inside me. Betrayal wasn't just a punch, it was a deep cut, and I wasn't sure if I could ever trust her again. But I knew one thing, I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I got out of bed early, made a cup of black coffee, and sat at the kitchen table. The apartment was quiet, except for the distant hum of traffic outside. I stared at the coffee, feeling its bitter heat seep into my fingertips. I needed a plan, a way to confront her, to get answers, but not just yet. First, I had to get more evidence, something solid that she couldn't deny. That afternoon, I started looking around the house for anything that could give me leverage. I knew her phone was always with her, so I grabbed her purse when she wasn't looking and dug through it. Nothing suspicious, just makeup, some receipts, her phone charger. But I knew her email login and social media passwords, and I decided to check her messages again, just to be sure. I wanted to feel the full weight of her deception. I sat at my desk, fingers trembling slightly as I typed in her passwords. The screen flickered and I found what I was looking for: more messages from Mark, even more flirtatious than before. She'd been hiding this from me, lying straight to my face. I felt a surge of anger, hot, raw, and uncontrollable. I clenched my fists, nails digging into my palms, and thought about what I could do next. That's when I spotted it, a small, crumpled receipt tucked inside her purse, underneath her lipstick and keys. I unfolded it carefully. It was a receipt from a hotel downtown, time-stamped the night she claimed she was working late. My blood ran cold. She'd gone somewhere else, somewhere she didn't want me to know about. The evidence was piling up, and I could feel my pulse pounding in my ears. I knew then I had to do something drastic. Confrontation was inevitable, but I needed to be ready. I wanted her to feel what I was feeling: the betrayal, the loss, the anger. I decided I'd follow her next time she worked late. I'd see exactly who she was with, what she was doing, and I'd remind her she wasn't as clever as she thought. I started planning my move. I had to be subtle but effective. I could follow her without her noticing, maybe set up a camera in my car or at the parking lot. I wanted irrefutable proof, something that would make her realize I wasn't playing around anymore. I wasn't just hurt. I was furious and determined to make her regret it. Later that night, she came home, acting normal, as if nothing was wrong. She greeted me with her usual fake smile, her eyes darting around, trying to hide something. I felt my jaw tighten. I looked her straight in the eyes and said, "We need to talk now." She blinked, caught off guard. "What's wrong?" "Oh, I think you know exactly what's wrong," I said, voice steady but cold. "I found your receipts. I know you went somewhere else last night. Do you want to tell me what the hell is going on?" Her face paled just a little, but she blinked rapidly, composure slipping. "It's not what you think. I was working late, I swear." "Save it," I cut her off, voice sharp. "I saw the messages. I saw the receipts. You lied to me for weeks. How long has this been going on?" She looked down, her hands trembling. "It's not what you think. It's just a mistake, I swear. I didn't mean for it to happen. Didn't mean for it to happen." "That's bullshit," I said, my fists clenched. "You think I'm some fool. I saw everything. This isn't just a mistake, it's betrayal. You're finished." Her eyes welled up with tears, but I didn't care. I felt the last thread of trust shred apart. That's when I knew I had to put my plan into motion. I couldn't just walk away, not without making her hurt as much as I was hurting now. This wasn't just about her cheating, it was about making her see what she'd lost. I sat there, staring at her, feeling my heart pounding. I didn't want to scream or lose control. I wanted her to understand I was serious. The revenge was coming, and I'd make sure she never forgets it. I just had to wait for the right moment to strike. The next morning, I woke up with a cold clarity I hadn't felt in years. The anger from yesterday simmered just beneath the surface, but I knew I could just jump in without a plan. I had to be smart. I had to make her feel the weight of what she'd done, but I also had to cover my tracks. If I was going to do this, I wanted her to realize she'd lost everything, not just her marriage, but her sense of control. I spent the day meticulously setting everything up. I borrowed a small camera from a friend, one that could record in secret. I placed it in my car, angled just right to catch who she'd be with when she worked late. I knew she'd be suspicious if I followed her myself, so I had to be sneaky. I also set up a hidden app on her phone, one that wouldn't be detectable and that could alert me if she turned it on at certain times. The anticipation made my stomach churn. I felt like I was walking a tightrope, knowing that one wrong move could blow everything. But I couldn't stop now. I wanted her to see that I wasn't just sitting back and taking her betrayal. I was fighting back, quietly but decisively. That night I waited in my car, engine running, eyes glued to the parking lot. The street was eerily silent, the only sounds, my own breathing, the faint hum of the engine, and the pounding of my heart. I kept checking my phone for the app's silent notifications. Then, almost exactly at 7:30 p.m., her car pulled into the lot. I watched her walk into the office building, her heels clicking on the pavement. She seemed nervous, glancing around, trying to be discreet. I felt a jolt in my chest, an odd mixture of satisfaction and rage. I knew she thought she was clever, but I was already one step ahead. I kept the camera rolling, waiting for her to come out. About an hour later, she emerged, her face flushed, eyes darting again. She hurried into her car and I followed at a safe distance. I kept my phone ready to record her again if needed. I was already planning to get footage of her meeting Mark, maybe even confronting her if I caught her red-handed. But as I parked nearby, I saw something unexpected. Her car pulled into a different lot, not the one by her office, but a small strip mall across town. I couldn't see her clearly from my angle, but I felt a cold sweat break out. What was she doing? Who was she meeting? The pieces were falling into place and I could feel the rush of adrenaline. I stayed put, watching her walk into a convenience store, then disappear behind a corner. I was about to get out and follow her, but I hesitated. I knew this wasn't just about catching her in the act anymore. It was about making her feel the consequences. I needed to be patient, to wait for her to let her guard down. When she finally returned to her car 20 minutes later, she looked around nervously before slipping into the driver's seat. I watched her for a few more moments, then made my move. I pulled out my phone, ready to record her driving away to have proof of her lies. I felt a cold, wicked satisfaction. As I sat there, I realized how calm I'd become. The rage had transformed into a quiet resolve. I was going to make her regret everything, her choices, her lies, her betrayal. I knew I had the evidence now, and I was planning how to use it. I wondered what she'd say when I finally confronted her. The question was, how much further was I willing to go? Because once I revealed what I knew, there would be no turning back. And honestly, part of me relished that thought. I was done being the naive husband. Now I was about to give her a taste of her own medicine. I stared at her car pulling away, feeling a strange sense of calm mixed with a dangerous edge. It was time to make the move. I just had to decide what my next step would be: confront her directly or let her squirm for a while longer. Either way, I knew I was close to crossing a line, and I was ready. The following morning hit me like a freight train. I woke up still feeling the adrenaline from the night before, but the cold, calculated part of my mind took over. I'd gathered enough evidence: the recordings, the receipts, the emails. I knew exactly what she'd done, and I knew I couldn't just let it slide. Not anymore. I made coffee, black and bitter, and sat at the kitchen table. My hands trembled slightly, not from tiredness but from the surge of anticipation. I was just angry. I was furious. The kind of furious that makes your bones ache. I had to decide how I was going to handle her: confront her outright, or play it cool and let her slip up. I decided on a middle ground. I would call her from work, pretend I was just checking in. The second she picked up, I'd tell her I knew everything. I'd let her sweat, let her try to deny it, then hit her with the evidence. I wanted her to realize she'd been caught in her own web of lies. I got my phone and dialed her number. Her voice sounded surprised, maybe even nervous. "Hey, everything okay? Oh, just checking in. I know you've been busy, but I wanted to ask, what have you been doing after work lately? I've noticed some things that don't add up," I said, voice calm but firm. There was a pause. "What do you mean?" "I saw the receipts, the hotel, the messages. Don't bother trying to deny it. I know you've been with Mark," I said bluntly. "And honestly, I'm done pretending I don't see it." She was silent for a moment, then tried to play it off. "It's not what it looks like. I was just working late. The hotel thing, that was for a project. It's nothing." "Oh, really? Because I've got a recording of you walking into that hotel and a receipt from last night's trip," I responded. "You lied to my face and I'm not going to put up with it anymore." Her voice cracked, a mix of anger and fear. "You're overreacting. I didn't mean for it to get this far. I was afraid you'd—" "Afraid of what? Telling me the truth or of losing your job?" I cut her off. "Look, I don't trust a word you say anymore. You had your chance and you blew it. I'm done." I hung up, feeling the weight lift off my shoulders, but the ache in my chest grow stronger. I knew I had to act now. The plan was simple but cruelly effective. I'd let her think she had the upper hand, then show her I wasn't some naive fool. I spent the rest of the day setting things in motion. I called a divorce lawyer, got the paperwork ready. I wanted a clean break, no messy negotiations, no dragging things out. She betrayed me in the worst way, and I was ready to walk away with what I deserved. That evening she came home nervous, as if she sensed something was wrong. She tried to act normal but was visibly on edge. I stood in the doorway, arms crossed, and looked her up and down. "You lied to me. All of it," I said, voice cold and hard. "And now I think you should know I have enough to end this marriage. You've been caught and there's no coming back from it." Her eyes widened, then she quickly tried to compose herself. "You're overreacting. I love you. It's just a mistake." "A mistake? That's all you're going to say?" I interrupted, stepping closer. "You think I don't see what you've done? I saw the messages, the receipts, the hotel. You've been sleeping with your boss while I was planning to make you my wife." She looked like she might cry, but I didn't care. I was too angry. "You're not just a liar. You're a thief of my trust, my time, my love. I want you out of my life. I want your keys, your ring, everything. Pack your things and get out." Her face twisted, tears streaming down her cheeks now. "Please don't do this." I was scared. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I shook my head. "That's not enough. You had your chance and you threw it away. I hope she's worth it, Mark. Because I'll never look at you the same way again. And I'll make sure everyone knows what kind of woman you really are." I grabbed her keys from the table, handed her the divorce papers I'd prepared, and watched her stumble to the door. Her hands shook as she grabbed her purse, and for the first time I felt a strange sense of closure. As she left, I closed the door behind her and took a deep breath. The house was silent, almost peaceful in its own cruel way. I knew this was the end of my marriage, and honestly I didn't feel that much loss. More relief than anything. I sat alone in the quiet, feeling the air in my lungs again. I'd won in my own way. She was out of my life and I was finally free. The betrayal had cut deep, but I had taken control. Sometimes the only way to heal is to cut out what's poison, and that's exactly what I was going to do. The silence in the apartment was deafening after she finally walked out. I sat there for a while, just staring at the door, feeling both emptiness and a strange sense of relief. Honestly, I'd been waiting for this moment for a long time, even if I didn't realize it consciously. It didn't feel like a victory, but it sure as hell felt like justice. I'd taken control back, and that was something I'd needed to do for myself, even if it hurt like hell in the process. The first thing I did was start packing her stuff. I didn't want to drag it out. I wanted her gone. I grabbed her suitcase, threw her clothes in, and made sure I got everything she'd need. I didn't want her hanging around, trying to make things difficult. I was done being the passive husband. This was about me reclaiming my life. While I packed, I kept thinking about the last few weeks, the lies she told, the sneaking around, the fake smiles, all of it. I realized I'd missed the signs earlier but chose to ignore them. Maybe because I wanted to believe in her, or maybe because I was afraid of losing what we had. But now I knew that what we had was gone, completely, irreparably destroyed. Once everything was in her bag, I walked to her phone lying on the counter. I knew I shouldn't, but I needed to be sure. I unlocked it quickly, and there it was, more messages with Mark, more proof she'd been hiding from me. I screenshot everything, then sent it to myself, making sure I had backup copies. If I ever needed to show someone, it was all there. I took her keys from the table and handed them to her. "Here," I said. "You might want these, and I want you to leave tonight. Don't come back, not for anything, and don't bother trying to call or text. I don't want to hear from you." Her eyes filled with tears again, but I was numb. I just wanted her gone. I saw her reach into her purse, pulling out her phone, probably ready to plead or make a scene, but I stopped her. "No," I said sharply. "You've done enough, just go." She hesitated for a moment, then nodded slowly. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I really am." I watched her walk out the door, feeling the cold sting of betrayal, but a strange, quiet strength in my chest. I didn't want to feel guilty. I wanted her to hurt, to feel the pain she'd forced me to feel for so long. That's when I knew I'd done the right thing. After she left, I took a shower. The water washed away the dirt, the sweat, the tears I hadn't shed. Standing there, feeling the hot water drip down my back, I finally allowed myself to breathe. It hit me. This was the end of a chapter, maybe the beginning of something better. I'd been hurt, yes, but I was free now. Free from her lies, her betrayal, her deception. I sat down on the couch with a glass of whiskey, staring at the empty walls. My mind kept racing, but I also felt a strange calm settle over me. I knew I'd be okay. I'd rebuild somehow, maybe. Not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually. The pain would fade and I'd find a way to move on. I also knew I needed to do something concrete, something that would make it clear I was serious about ending this. So I printed out all the evidence, screenshots of her messages, receipts, everything, and put them in an envelope. I walked to her car where her bag still sat, and I handed it all over to the driver I'd hired to take her to her parents' place. Before she left, I looked her in the eyes one last time. "This is over," I said quietly. "I hope you find what you're looking for, but it's not with me anymore. Goodbye." She nodded, tears streaking her face. She got into the car and it pulled away, leaving me standing there in the quiet. I closed my eyes, feeling a strange mix of emptiness and relief. I'd set everything in motion: the divorce, the rebuilding, the moving on. It was going to hurt for a while, but I knew I'd survive it. As I watched her disappear down the street, I made a promise to myself. No more secrets, no more lies. From now on, I'd be honest with myself, no matter how hard it got. Because the truth, brutal as it was better than living in a lie. And I was done with living in her shadow. In the end, I realized the only way to truly heal was to take control. And that's what I did. I took her keys, I handed her a one-way ticket, and I shut that chapter of my life forever. Sometimes you have to lose everything to find yourself again. The days that followed were a blur of paperwork, legal calls, and trying to piece myself back together. I kept busy, not because I wanted to forget, but because I knew I had to. Every time I sat still for too long, the truth of her betrayal crept back into my mind, bitter and raw. But I forced myself to keep moving, to focus on rebuilding something for myself. The divorce was finalized a few weeks later. I handed over the signed papers, took back my freedom, and felt an odd sense of closure. I didn't celebrate, but I didn't mourn either. It was just done. I knew I'd lost her, but I'd gained clarity. The fog of betrayal lifted, revealing a path forward I'd never imagined I'd walk, but one I was determined to own now. I kept the evidence I'd gathered, screenshots, receipts, recordings, in a secure folder. I wasn't planning to use them to hurt her anymore. I just wanted the satisfaction of knowing I'd seen the truth and finally accepted it. The weight of the betrayal still lingered, but I was learning to live with it, to let it shape me rather than break me. One night I sat outside on my porch, the cool air washing over me, and finally allowed myself to breathe deeply. I looked up at the stars, feeling at peace for the first time in a long while. The betrayal had been a blow, but it also showed me who I was, someone capable of standing up, of fighting back, of reclaiming his life. I wasn't the naive man who believed in fairy tales anymore. Now I knew the truth. Now I was ready to build from it. I realized I'd learned one of the most important lessons of all. Trust is a fragile thing, and once broken, it's nearly impossible to repair. But that's okay. Some things are better left in the past. What's left is just me, and that's enough. Looking back, I see how much I've grown. The betrayal was horrifying, yes, but it also made me realize my own strength. It's not about revenge anymore. It's about moving forward, about protecting myself from being hurt that way again. I don't need someone who lies and manipulates to define my happiness. I'll find it on my own. So I packed up her things, handed her the keys, and closed that chapter of my life. I sent her the last email just to make sure she knew I knew everything. No more lies, no more games, that was the end. I deleted her number, blocked her from my life, and refused to look back. In the quiet that remained, I finally found peace. It wasn't the peace I'd imagined when I proposed, full of hope and promises. It was a harder kind, built on truths uncovered and lessons learned. I won't pretend it was easy, it was, but it was real, and that's enough for me.